welcome to Tête-à-tête with Tiwa. I'm Tineke.
And I'm Wally.
And today's question, I'm not sure if we've dealt with this before in Tête-à-tête, but it's about in-laws. And the question is, how important is it to get on with your in-laws and why? What do you think, mate?
I think it's absolutely important to get on with your in-laws, unless the person you're marrying doesn't get along with their family. And what am I saying? If the person you're marrying doesn't have a relationship with his family or her family, then sure, you could try it, but it's not that important, because it's obvious that the family is not that person's family is not that important to them.
But I almost feel that in that situation, you could possibly be the link that will make the difference.
That's one angle.
Yeah.
The other angle
is that you should have nothing to do with them because they're dangerous and there's a reason why.
Because there is something like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
so
fair enough.
So there's that. I guess the different angles to.
I mean, I guess also if by the time you get together with your spouse doesn't have a relationship with their family, you're probably not even going to know them, meet them, or anything to have that relationship in the first place.
Yeah.
But if it's something that happens after, then potentially you could be the peacemaker.
Of course.
Even if you don't get them back together, you don't need to necessarily be fighting with them.
Yes.
So to speak. Yeah. That's what I think.
Yeah.
In-laws. I think in-laws is one. I don't know. I think in-laws get a bad rep, and I just think it's not necessarily the case. I actually think that I feel like we've had this discussion before. Anyway, I'll go ahead. I feel like, let's even talk about mother-in-laws. Mother-in-laws get a bad rep because it's like, they just make everything difficult for their in-law. I don't actually think that's the case. I think what we have to learn to do is to look at each person as an individual, as a human. As a mother myself, having raised my kid for 26 years, it's going to be very hard for me to just release my kid to somebody else. It really is. Now, obviously, because I'm aware of it and I'm a mom and I'm going to try not to, but I can understand why some mothers, and especially if they're not prepared, and when I say prepared, they haven't thought it through, so they haven't thought that, okay, at some point, this child is going to marry or somebody else is going to be more important in this child's life than me. It can come as quite a shock. And so their behavior will be one of possessiveness, or
it will be reflective of that.
Do you know what I mean? And so I think sometimes we just have to take a step back and think, if I was in her shoes, how would I behave? You know what I mean? And try and be a bit more understanding. And you see, it's that thing where you say somebody has, if somebody has been doing something for 20 years,
that's it.
They can't change it overnight.
Yes.
It might take 20 years for them to change it. So you know what I mean? So having had your child as your son or your daughter for this many years, it's not going to be in the time that you start dating, that your child starts dating someone and marries the person, that you're necessarily going to be able to switch your mindset. So I think we as the daughters-in-laws and son-in-laws have to be a bit considerate of that. I think the mother-in-laws have them, the parents-in-law have their own bonus, where they too also have to be like, actually, at some point I have to let the child go, etc., etc. But I think if we have that at the back of your mind, then it makes it much easier. I don't feel that I know there are exceptions to the rule, but I don't feel that most mother-in-laws or most in-laws are just out to make life hard for their in-laws. I don't feel that's it. I feel like it's a genuine thing that they're feeling at the time, and they probably just don't know how to handle that emotion, because it's a new emotion that has come.
Yeah.
That's what I think.
Yes, and then I totally agree with you. And I think that's why the onus is on us as individuals to be considerate. And so either side I'm talking about here, to be considerate and to work with understanding and empathy when we come to relationships, and these relationships specifically, with the understanding that this is alien to these people,
Yeah.
you know, and they might not deal with it immediately in the right way for some. And perhaps people should be less, I don't want to say less offended, but what I'm trying to say is be slower to be offended. You know what I mean? Be slower to be offended, because a lot of the time when these things happen, the clashes that happen, it's really a lot of the time about ego.
Yeah.
You know, ego and the offense that's taken. How can she? I'm the wife. Is my husband now, and he is my child. You know, I gave birth to it. No, that's all. All that is ego.
Yeah.
All that is ego. What about we just say, all right, well, look, let me try to understand where this person's coming from, and then build a relationship with the person, because life is so much easier when, you know, when we all get along. You know, I'm just thinking to myself, only people have my mother-in-law. There's no, do you understand what I mean? So when I hear these stories about bad mother-in-law, I was like, God damn it, you know, excuse my language. You know, hey, you guys, well,
But no, but I do think, and one of the things that I have always done, not in an in-law situation, just in general, is if I have any issues with someone, just from a Christian perspective as well, I use a term, a phrase where I say, kill them with love. I feel that everybody responds to love.
Yeah.
Everybody responds to love. So if you can get out of yourself and love regardless, no matter what is happening, if you can love.
So what do you think can stop somebody from getting out of themselves?
It's ego now. You know what I mean? So if you can actually just be like, you know what, it's not about me. And this is, I guess it's hard for people. Yeah. I don't know. But I feel like, I don't know, I just feel like we're just one part of the human race. Yeah. One tiny little part of the human race. And yes, significant part, but just one tiny little part. There's so much more, you know, and it just doesn't make sense to me. I feel like, you know, that's phrase that Joyce Meyer uses, hurt people hurt people. If somebody is hurting you, they're probably hurt in some way. You know, it's almost like, how about we step back and just look at things from other people's perspective instead of from our perspective, be less selfish and more considerate.
Are we talking about being Christianly here? I'm just asking.
Yes, we are, but you know, that can be said, but you know, there's a lot of Christians that maybe don't do that themselves.
That's why I said that.
So, but you know what I mean? Like, you know, actually just being a bit considerate of the other person. And you know, it's so funny because a lot of the time, like when I talk to people and they're like, oh, but he made me look like a fool, so I should look like a fool. So why is he treating me like this? He's disgracing me. He's, you know, and I'm just like, there's too much me in this thing. There's too much me. Who cares? Who cares? I don't know. And I think, so I mean, I don't even know if we're addressing the in-law issue, but I think...
No, I think we are addressing it. Look, be more understanding. Be more understanding. Let it be a bit less about you. Let it be about building a relationship that fosters love, that fosters peace in the short and the long term. Look at what is your aim? What is the goal? Is the goal conflict? Do you want to continue in conflict, in strife? If that's what you want to do, then yeah, go on. But if that is not the case, then do what you have to do. Find 100 ways that you can get there if your aim is to find love, peace, harmony. This way you're not affected, your spouse is not affected, your children are not affected, your in-laws are not affected.
But I think there's certain ways that you can even help to foster that thing. Like, so for example, I never refer to my mother-in-law as my mother-in-law, or she's just my mother.
Yeah.
Which psychologically does something immediately. You know what I mean? Because it's not, you know, it's not qualifying.
Yeah.
Her, she's my mother, she's my mother. Yeah. And I think sometimes, you know, people refer to them as mother in love. I don't. That's not for me. She's my mother. She's my mother.
Period.
You know what I mean? So I think there are things that you can do that will just maybe make it easier.
Yeah.
Make the transition easier.
Yeah.
You can,
Absolutely.
But
Absolutely.
I guess each person has to find out what that is. I can understand. Well,
I mean, I started calling your mom, even before we got married,
how cheeky of you.
because she was my mom.
What if I didn't marry you?
She would have still been my mom. You know.
Actually, I called your mom before.
Yeah.
We got married, but at the point when we knew we were getting married, not just randomly before.
Yeah.
But,
Well, I did before even, you know, we decided we were getting married. Yes.
but you see, that's also a cultural thing. Now you call people mommy. But as
How
in
many
call
people I call
No, I'm not
mommy?
saying you. I'm saying that in the
Yeah,
European
but so it
culture,
doesn't work with me because I don't call people
well,
mom.
I can just pretend that's what you did.
Oh,
Yes,
fair enough.
because it would have come naturally to you to do that. Whereas
Well, it didn't actually, but I don't call anybody mom. Yeah.
when
Those
you
are the
said
only.
mom, not
Those
mommy.
mom. I never call anybody mommy. Actually, I don't even call my mom mommy. But yeah. So yeah, those are the only two people that I call mom.
Yes, I think, but I do think that's this is not to negate the fact that there are some in-laws that probably are actually just being nasty.
Yeah.
There's some like that. We can't take that away.
Yeah. That's when I was talking about what is the aim. I was
Yeah. But
referring
what I mean is that even if,
addressing them as
but
well.
if I'm the person coming into a family that the in-laws are deliberately being horrible, what can I do? I still feel that there's a lot that I can do to change that situation, or at least to not aggravate the situation. You know what I mean? Because I could, you know, it's all that thing about, you know, I always say this thing about we need to respond, not react. So you come into a thing, somebody's being nasty to you, you can react and be nasty back to them because that's probably the most natural thing to do. But you can decide to respond and say, no, actually, I'm going to be the bigger person. I'm not going to, I'm not going to react. I'm just going to love you, or I'm going to ignore what you're doing that is not, you know. So I think that we do have the power.
Yes.
And I think so often we just refuse to use that power because we now put it down to well, she's a wicked mother-in-law, or she did that. Who cares what she did? What are you doing? That's my take on that.
Yeah, because like
so I think it is important to get on with your in-laws because it does make sense. Because if not, you're putting a rift between your spouse and their family, because then they're now having to choose who, you know, and it's a battle that they don't need to have. So why do that?
Yeah.
Why do that? And God forbid, I mean, I've done this thing with Wale where I've told him that if he wants a dog, he has to choose between me and the dog. But God forbid that he has to. At the moment, I'm winning. I don't know how long that will last. But God forbid that, you know, if you're making your spouse choose between you and his family, God forbid he now goes and chooses his family. Do you know what I mean? So you kind of don't necessarily need to be involved in any of that at all.
Shouldn't even be putting that sort of thing on, that sort of burden on anybody.
Yeah, that's what I mean. But so
Yeah.
I mean, why would you want to put your spouse in that position? It's like between a rock and a hard place. I mean, what are they supposed to do? The person that fed them, carried them, clothed them, educated them, everything them, and then you, the person that they love. Not that they don't love this, but you know, it's unfair.
Yeah.
So I just feel like whatever you can do, and I think there's a lot that we
That's
can
always
do,
what we do.
but I think sometimes we just ignore a lot of the stuff we can do.
Yeah.
Whatever we can do, because I've always said this thing, and I think I've said it on here several times, you cannot change anybody else, you can only change yourself.
Yeah.
So what can you do in that situation to make that situation better, or at least make it, you know, not any worse?
Calm it. Yeah.
And then that's what you do, and you do it and you do it and you pray, and then God will, you know, hopefully eventually things will change. So that's my take on that. I don't know if you have anything else to add.
No, I'm with you. 100%.
You're with me?
Absolutely.
100%.
100%.
Loving it.
100%.
Okay, guys, that's it. We shall see you next time.
What did I say the other time?
Ciao.
No.
Au revoir.
Yeah, you said something. So I said au revoir. You
I
said
said à la prochaine.
à la prochaine.
À la prochaine. Yes, till the next time.
À la prochaine, people.